Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great, good. If you've watched any of my videos on survival kits and gear, you've probably sussed out that I tend to keep things fairly simple, particularly when it comes to technology. Simple things tend to be robust and less prone to failure. That said, I've been thinking a lot lately about whether I'm being a bit of a Luddite when it comes to the subject. One of the things that prompted this little internal debate of mine was this watch. My G-Shock Mudmaster, which I tend to wear when doing outdoor stuff. It's a rugged watch. It has some cool things baked into it like a compass, a thermometer, and other useful features. It also has a battery which in normal use only lasts about 2 years. Now that wasn't an issue until a few months back when I had to replace the battery. It takes removing a number of screws to do so. Not a big deal at your desk, but it makes the watch unserviceable out in the field. Had it happened during a survival situation and I was depending on the watch for something, well, not much use at that point. The thing that caused me to possibly reconsider my anti-tech position was watching some other YouTube channels, Kit Bash Survival for example, where they were more than happy to include modern technology like GPS units, radios, and cell phones. They oftentimes even added portable battery packs or small solar panels to recharge those electronics. That and some other things got me to thinking. Does technology, and I'm going to define that simply as something that requires a perishable source of electrical power, have a role as items to be depended on in your survival gear, and if so, with what caveats and requirements? I'm not anti-tech, by the way. Full admission, when I go hunting, I carry this Garmin eTrex 20. I do also carry a map and compass, but this little unit does a lot of heavy lifting. It has full topographical maps where I live, tracks where I go, lasts a very long time on 2 AA batteries, and has been very reliable. In a survival situation, at least while I was hunting, I would use it. But I'd also be very aware that the map and compass can serve me far longer than when the Garmin dies. My objections to much technology and survival gear comes from the following. The power source on all these items is perishable. Their batteries may last hours, days, even weeks, but they do eventually run out. It doesn't matter if the batteries are rechargeable or replaceable, they will die. And with Murphy's Law in full effect, that may happen when you're depending on it in a survival situation. A lot of modern technology relies on a support system to function. At its simplest, if you have something that's battery powered, you either need to carry spare batteries or some way of recharging the unit if that's the way it works. That means you're further encumbered by carrying batteries, a portable charger, or solar panels. Ounces equal pounds, and pounds equal pain. The more gear that you have to carry that you may never use, the less likely you are to carry it going forward. On a more technical level, that support system may mean that your devices may need to interact with something else in order to even be useful, whether that's a cell phone signal or GPS satellites. If for some reason those don't work and you're primarily relying on them, you obviously have no way of communicating or navigating. Heck, a lighter that runs out of fuel is less useful than a ferro rod and a striker, at the risk of stating the obvious. Let's get to the common objections to my Luddite perspective. With the use of a solar panel, you can recharge either batteries or device itself with little more than exposure to the sun. People also say for short to mid-term survival situations, battery-powered devices are perfectly fine. And it takes a lot less skill to flick your Bic, navigate with your phone, or get somewhere with a GPS unit. Let's deal with the solar panel objection first. I'm going to be perfectly frank how I feel about a lot of the consumer-grade solar panels you typically see being advertised to the outdoors set. They're garbage. There are a number of issues with solar panels which limit their usefulness. The first is the ones that you typically see being sold to people. Well, they're all small. Solar panels, like a few things in life, are a size game. The bigger, the better. Without getting too deep into the math, the size of a solar panel plus its conversion rate gives it a maximum theoretical power rating. In reality, most of these panels rarely even get to that maximum rating due to environmental factors. Perfect skies and a blazing sun overhead are best. Anything else begins to limit that amount of gathered sunlight, or issues with the panel itself, such as its size and quality of construction, among other factors. Not to judge the fine manufacturers of Shenzhen and Guangzhou, but a lot of the panels that you see on sites like Amazon, Wish, and Alibaba, plus 100 other places, have ratings which are, to be polite, utterly fictional. There are plenty of videos on YouTube testing these panels and finding that they don't even come close to the reputed power rating. That means it could take days to recharge something that would normally take hours. For a solar panel to be effective, at least in my opinion, it has to be far larger in size than what most people are willing to carry, and of very high quality, that is to say expensive. And remember, you aren't recharging a lot of things at a time with a solar panel. It's probably only one thing at a time, and very slowly. There are problems with battery power items as well. Most people use alkaline batteries in their portable GPS units, flashlights, whichever, which is a bad idea. Alkaline batteries eventually leak. That's the lovely white crusty residue you find in something battery powered they haven't used in a long time, and potentially damage that device. The batteries, alkaline that is, also have poor cold weather and temperature performance. I'll get into alternatives into alkaline batteries later in the video. If you opt for rechargeable batteries in your items, you bring yourself now two issues. The first one I mentioned earlier, which is you've introduced the need for a support system for those batteries in order to recharge them. More weight, more space taken up. Rechargeable batteries also don't do very well with arrhythmic electricity flows, the kind that you get out of garbage solar panels, and have relatively limited lifespan. You're also faced with the potential issue of a purpose-built battery. Everything these days seems to be sealed up so you can't service it yourself, so that battery in your cell phone will probably be useless in anything else, presuming you can even get it out of your phone. And devices which require outside technology to operate, phones, radios, GPS units, for example, work only as well as you can get a signal. You might not be in a place where you can get that. A forest with heavy cover, mountainous terrain, canyon, long distance from a cell tower, whatever. Now, as for the argument that a reduced skill set is necessary when it comes to technology versus more simple and even primitive methods, it's hard to argue, actually. Land navigation, a skill that I had to learn over time in the military using a map and compass, isn't necessary if you have an application on your phone or GPS unit. And anyone who's taken a back bearing by accident knows you can easily screw up the old ways. With an application, you drop a pin where you started and you should be able to navigate back. Can you actually get lost with a map application? You can probably find a river, road, or camping area just by panning around the map and get there. Of course, a proper topographical map can tell you that there's a swamp, mountain, or whatever in between you and where you want to go, so the shortest line between A and B often isn't a straight path. But that can also be mitigated by a dedicated outdoors map application with topographical information, assuming you know how to read that information. The danger of the reduced skill set is that if your technology fails, can you still navigate? If the smartphone is damaged, can you still remember all the fancy survival skills that are saved as movies, pictures, and books on it? It is possible to replace your car's brakes if you've never done it before and follow along on a YouTube video, but how confident are you in the result? Learning how to do things and practicing them regularly is more valuable than your smartphone's fragile screen. With all that said, I think you can at least understand my reluctance on relying on powered devices and modern technology in a survival situation, particularly if they're going to be your primary or only tool for certain tasks. I'm not telling you to leave your cell phone at home. If you're out adventuring, like everyone else, mine is in my pocket. And yes, Mine has outdoor applications like trail software, navigation, survival, and outdoor resources. In an uh-oh moment, I'm going to check it first to see if I can make a call. That said, it's not what I'm necessarily going to rely on in a true survival situation. With all of that out of the way, are there situations where I can grudgingly accept the use of technology? Well, yeah, actually, of course. An example, my G-Shock watch that I mentioned earlier and its 2-year battery. But you can buy G-Shocks and other similar watches from companies like Timex, Sunto, and Garmin with many of the same and more features that have a solar charging function and an ability to get the time from an atomic clock somewhere. If you buy a rugged, water and shockproof watch with solar charging technology, you will likely have something that will indefinitely serve you out there. Having a portable communications device like a CB or GMRS radio, and some of them are surprisingly small, is not a bad idea. CB is relatively range limited compared to GMRS due to wattage output restrictions, but both have emergency channels built into those units where you could potentially reach someone with, not to mention options for frequencies for weather information. Batteries are also a consideration, but I have no problem with someone relying on a radio. You insist on replaceable batteries. Well, think maybe lithium iron disulfide batteries from companies like Energizer. They're out there and they feature, in some cases, a 20-year shelf life. They don't leak and they work well in cold temperatures. Although they put out pretty good power compared to alkalines, there's still a short-term solution. They will die. If you insist on rechargeable batteries, low self-discharged nickel metal hydride or NIM batteries may be your solution. They work well with inconsistent charging, such as via cheap solar panels, but they don't have as much capacity as similar-sized non-LSD NIM batteries. They also don't provide as much peak power as alkaline or lithium-ion batteries. Obviously, whatever tech you do bring with you should be environment-proof, to the extent that it can be, so water, temperature, and shock-proof. If it needs power, you should be using those, high-capacity, long-lasting batteries. If you're going to insist on solar panel, be prepared to spend good money on those panels. But it's better if that solar technology is actually baked into that unit, like with the watch that I mentioned. Or you can manually charge it, something like those radios with the crank handle. And remember, all this extra stuff means you don't have a compact and relatively light survival kit. This is now a medium or full-sized kit or part of your regular hiking or camping gear. As with everything, survival kits and technology are a battle of compromises. I would personally argue that the more technology you introduce into a survival kit, the more potential compromises and failure points you may have to deal with. Powered devices, regardless of what that power source is, don't last forever and could give you a false sense of security and ability. If you're going to rely on technology in your gear, at least have the manual skills and equipment to compensate if that tech fails when you need it. Someone who can fix their position using landmarks, a map, and a compass can navigate far longer than the person with their fancy $1,500 smartphone and its limited battery lifespan. A wet Bic lighter starts no fires. At any rate, I hope you found today's video to at least be vaguely entertaining, although that would be difficult given how long and wordy I've been, and marginally informative. I suspect that a lot of people are going to disagree with my take on this, so feel free to argue it in the comments below. May you never need to use that survival kit, regardless of what you have in there. Take care, and bye-bye.